When it comes to marksmanship, there are two different approaches. The first, deliberation and precision. The second, sheer volume of fire, an unrelenting hail of lead. Today, we're favouring the latter, as we cover the R97 compact SMG. Shorter weapons serve as useful options for vehicle crews and secondary combat roles. Cramped interior spaces are not conducive to manoeuvring full-size rifles. As such, the R97 was created, a derivative of the R101 platform in a much more compact configuration, with a collapsible stock and shorter barrel. It retains the angled magwell and oversized trigger guard of its parent design, but the weapon is chambered for a smaller caliber cartridge. The 5.8 by 42mm DBP 87 round dates back to the 20th century, introduced by Old World China as an intermediate round to compete with its NATO equivalent. It offers balanced performance with adequate terminal ballistics for relatively low weight and recoil, the perfect combination for a short-ranged automatic weapon. Needless to say, if you're looking for raw damage, then you'll find this round lacking. It deals the lowest per shot damage of all options available. You'll need 5 rounds to kill an enemy pilot at a close range, and at a distance, this scales up to a grand total of 7 rounds instead. Weaker opponents will succumb to your fire more readily, but the wiser pilot will ensure the majority of combat takes place within their effective range. Similarly, damage versus Titans is quite low. You'll need to empty a few magazines to take down an ogre, for instance, but the weapon's rate of fire does mean you can dispense this reasonably quickly. Effective range is relatively short, with the weapon's damage evaporating to its lowest level outside of all but the shortest range engagements. Paired with moderate recoil, your odds of downing an uninjured pilot at range are slim. The weapon's kick isn't a factor within your effective range, however, and paired with excellent hipfire performance, landing shots on close range targets is easy. The R97's key strength is in its rate of fire. No other weapon on offer discharges rounds as quickly, with its cyclic rate of 960 rounds per minute. This elevated output makes up in part for the lackluster damage, and will provide more consistent performance than weapons reliant on single-shot accuracy. Unfortunately, it does also mean you'll have to your mag faster too, but the R97 does have a relatively generous 40 rounds by default, or 50 when equipped with extended mags. Reloads aren't too bad either, taking just 1.8 seconds for a tactical reload. Topping up between firefights isn't too major a distraction. In fact, the R97's handling is generally very rapid all round. Its lightweight construction means you can aim down your sights in a sprightly 200 milliseconds, and switch times aren't too punishing either, in cases where you need to fall back to your secondary. If you like to stay on the move, you'll be entirely unhindered, as your mobility with this weapon is at the maximum, 100%. The R97 is a weapon designed for reliably tackling targets at a short distance. With both rapid output and handling, your loadout should seek to complement this approach. The weapon's iron sights are perfectly adequate for close range work, but you do have an alternative option if you prefer a clearer sight picture. The HCOG behaves as it does with other weapons, providing a straightforward replacement for your iron sights with a more open reticle. The only real downside is that the broad viewfinder can be more difficult to use whilst cloaked, but otherwise it is an upgrade. If it's available to you, it's definitely worth equipping. In addition to this optic, there are also 3 mods to choose from, each enhancing or altering the weapon's performance in some manner. First up is the extended magazine, taking the weapon from 40 rounds per reload to 50 instead. A slightly muted increase, but a valuable one given the rate of fire. Those 10 extra rounds may make the difference when tackling more than one enemy at once, and averting a reload mid-firefight might save your bacon. The suppressor hides you from your enemy's radar while firing, but this comes at the cost of damage, with enemies taking 1 additional shot at all ranges. Nevertheless, the R97 is quite well suited to a stealth role, you'll avoid detection by enemies too distant to engage safely, and the faster rate of fire means the additional shot needed is dealt rapidly. Finally, the Scatterfire mod increases your rate of fire by 30% to 1260 rounds per minute. This comes at the cost of a 25% increase in recoil, but in closer quarters, the increased output more than makes up for this. You will have to endure more frequent reloads, however, so while boasting the fastest rate of fire on the battlefield, a Scatterfire-equipped SMG might be overkill. Overall, then, I'd elect the extended magazine for a general-purpose SMG role. You retain the damage and versatility the other options lack, and gain a 25% increase in sustained fire. A stealth role can work well too, as the damage lost by the suppressed R97 is minimal considering its already low damage and high rate of fire, but covert use requires a very particular approach. Beyond this, you should gear up for high mobility. Stim can work well as your tactical ability, for those moments where an ounce more maneuverability can prove decisive. Another nice pairing is the run and gun kit, permitting fire whilst sprinting, retaining your lethal ability while rapidly evading an opponent's fire. In many ways, you'll want to approach the R97 in a similar way to the EVA 8 shotgun. Positioning and movement are key, and getting caught in the open a good way to invite a swift death. Interior spaces and high-traffic choke points should be your main area of operation, as you'll need to ensure the majority of combat happens within your effective range to preserve an advantage. Unlike the shotgun, you're not entirely helpless at a middle distance. The SMGs are a mite more versatile, and you can sometimes get away with tackling a slower-witted opponent outside your comfort zone, if you can take the initiative. If you're ever in doubt, a good rule of thumb is to get as close as you can, point in the general direction of your foe, and then simply pin the trigger. The R97 Compact SMG is the fastest firing weapon on offer, making it ideal for consistent performance during close-range use. Unlike the shotgun, you're less reliant on shot placement, so you can more liberally dispense your magazine without pausing to consider your accuracy. Unfortunately, you sacrifice effective range for this output and mobility. And with the lowest per shot damage on offer, you'll find the weapon is largely useless at any sort of distance. While you can direct long-range shots accurately, the need to land several hits on an enemy pilot will leave you vulnerable to counterattack. So it's normally best to avoid such conflict, and instead maneuver closer. Still, if you're able to engineer engagements at a closer range, you won't be left disappointed. And as such, the R97 is ideal for those who prefer a faster pace of conduct. So, if your accuracy leaves much to be desired, and you're desperate for salvation, all you need do is spray and pray. Thank you very much for your presence, and do join me next time when we'll be covering the Spitfire LMG. Until then, farewell.